Hello and welcome again to One Starfish, where our mission is to change the world one starfish or one person at a time. As always, make sure to rate, review, subscribe, all the things. I'm really excited for our guest today, Monica Burke. She is a realtor from Oklahoma. She's been in the realty profession for about 8 years. She's got a book that's just coming out November 1st, and it's called The Power On. And so it'll be released when this is broadcast. So make sure to grab it. We'll have links and all that stuff in the show notes. So really glad and thanks for being on, Monica.
Thank you, Angela. I'm really happy to be here.
Awesome. So we touched a little bit before on a few things. So we'll start digging into some gold right away. First of all, there's been a lot of stuff. So in the last 3 years, Monica's lost 100 pounds. She's been on an amazing weight loss journey, which is absolutely incredible. So we'll touch a little bit on that. She also lost everything back at the beginning of realty, and they've rebuilt it up to the top 10% as a real estate agent, which is pretty impressive. So let's go back. If we go back to childhood trauma, let's go back to like where you feel there was a dramatic shift. You said there was some childhood trauma, and like where did it start to shift to make you into the person that dealt with the stuff that you've gone through? It's not about the results, it's about who you are.
Yeah, absolutely. So I will tell you guys, just starting off, like I had early childhood trauma. So my dad's side of the family were drug addicts, like hardcore crack, cocaine, meth, whatever they could get their hands on.
All the good stuff.
Yeah. Prostitutes, to pay for their habits and things. My dad died when when I was 6 years old of AIDS. And at a time when that was just starting up. My mom took custody of us towards his death. And when he died, it was his family ransacked his house of anything of valuable. They put themselves, like, they forged a lot of things, put themselves as first notice, forged over like life insurance policies and things to them as the beneficiary. So like we showed up to the house for the first time since his death, and all of our stuff was piled high, broken, trampled on in the driveway. So we, to this day, like, I don't really have anything in my dad's. And then as a child, we moved in from that point with my stepdad, who's very militant, very military. You get up at 6 a.m. You go to school, you come home, you do your schoolwork, then you do your chores, and then if there's time left, then you can go enjoy whatever you want. Mm-hmm. It was very structured. So we went from a very crazy, chaotic, anything goes, to a very, very structured, like nothing is right type of environment. So there's a lot of stuff with that, and I didn't actually deal with that until I would say my early 20s. And when I got pregnant in high school with my husband, and we just started, just trying to numb. That's the only way I could say, is like we were just numbing in any way possible. Recreational drugs, alcohol, food, binge eating, anything that I could do to just numb myself. That's what I was doing. So that was my coping for a long time. And then I got assaulted one night. And I know I'm just like throwing so much crazy stuff.
Dude, I love it.
But I got assaulted one night. And that changed everything, because I didn't know anything really about the guy who had assaulted me. It was in my home. It was very physically kind of violent towards my body. And it really made me deal with all of the trauma, because at that point, I just really wanted to die. Like that was, I was done. The only thing that kept me around was there was a core belief that if I wasn't around, my kids wouldn't be safe. And like their lives are better with me in it versus me not in it. Like that was the only thing that my brain just kept going back to, is like, if you're not in their life, things are going to happen to them because you weren't there to protect them. And so that made me get help for the first time. And I went to see a therapist. I found out some things about myself that I did not know. Like I have what you call as a HSP, which is a highly sensitive person. It's a real scientific thing, I know. But
I
it
know a few
is,
people that might be that.
yeah. And there's little online tests you can take, but it essentially all it is that we have more receptors in our brain than the average person. So our information receiver is very heightened. So all these events that have happened, my brain has taken them and really clung onto them, and it was even more like magnified with the way that my brain perceived all of the events and things that have happened. And so that was very freeing because once I understood, like, I'm just this very emotional creature, which I already kind of knew. We all kind of have a baseline of who, we think we understand. But instead of it's just like Monica's just sensitive. That's how she is. She's just too sensitive.
Right.
It was like, no, I'm not crazy.
Right.
And like this, not only am I not crazy, I can now start working towards how to handle this. And if I can figure this out, then my kids can figure it out because I suspect that they're sensitive similarly to me. And so I've had to learn how to what I call ride the wave of emotions and those things because I understand like I'm not built normally, and that is very hard in this world, being very sensitive. And it's not just a mental sensitivity, it's medications, it's all the things. Like I'm very sensitive to a lot of things physically, mentally, and all the ways in between. So that one thing became the superpower, honestly. And once I learned that and being able to turn on my powerhouse, that switch, that's what changed. And so I started getting better, started just trying to focus on what would make me happy, not other people happy. And it just smallly started trickling in. Like it was simple as going to a paint class because I just wanted to try it one night by myself, willing to do it by myself. And then past that, I got into real estate. I started getting brave enough of like, okay, I'm not happy at my job. I want to change it. I want to do something that I want to be in front of people. I want to talk to people. I love people. And I got into real estate, started doing well. My husband started a concrete business with a guy that he went to high school with. And that guy robbed everyone. They were getting commercial jobs and all kinds of stuff. And he stole about 200 grand worth of stuff and money and checks, and we lost everything. I got out of real estate. I failed more miserably than most people would want to fail in their life. People were showing up to the office very upset. They didn't even know my name. They were like, Mrs. Burke, because they knew my husband. They didn't know, and they knew I worked there because they were getting liens on their property because the guy didn't pay the concrete bill, the concrete company. There were a lot of clients who had already paid the partner up front, and their driveways were halfway ripped out, and
oh wow,
like all kinds of stuff. And so I found out at the same time I'm pregnant with my daughter. We didn't think that was possible. My husband had a vasectomy 5 years prior. They'd say your first year is your year of risk. So it was just like every day we woke up going, I don't think it can get worse. And then it did. It was like, but wait, there's more.
Right.
And so we lost everything, and nobody would hire me because I'm pregnant. And then I can't. The thing with real estate is, your bills. It's just like any other business. It's coming whether you're making money or you're not. Like you got bills to pay to play. You got to pay to play. And I had to put all of that on hold and kind of get out and try to get a job. Nobody wanted to hire me because I was pregnant. My husband at that time, the only people hiring were paying like $12 an hour, but like 80-hour weeks. How are you supposed to ever get out of that situation if all you do is work and sleep? It wouldn't make for a very good family life. We ended up moving to North Carolina for 2 months while I was pregnant, like 7 months pregnant. We lived with my parents while he went to school for truck driving. Because it was one job you could do 30 days, get your Class A CDL. You'll have a job before you even graduate. They pay decently. Like it's just that's what we're gonna do. And so we drove. moved there. I unenrolled my kids from school here in Oklahoma, enrolled them there for 2 months. Straight up telling the schools, listen, this is temporary, but your kids have to be enrolled in school. You can't
Right.
just say, hey, this is what we're doing. So they went to school there for 2 months. We came back. He literally graduated school, took his test, same day, got his CDL. Next day, 3:00 in the morning, we drove back to Oklahoma, 18-hour drive. Very next day, he got on a plane and went to Washington State for training. It was like bam, bam, bam. And it's just crazy. Like it was just crazy. And we were living off of like $600 a month, paying back all of these people. It was a place that I never thought that I would be in. Like, I never thought I'd be a person that got evicted or foreclosed on or couldn't take care of my kids. I just never saw myself being that person. So, like, when you're asking, where did that shift happen? Every time it happened because honestly of someone else. I don't think I've ever done anything for myself to this day. It's like the right thing, my kids. Like that jolted me into like, I have to. This I vowed I would never go back in real estate because I was like, I felt so hard. Like I was so shameful, embarrassed. Like I carried a ton of shame. But luckily for me, my son jolted me out of that. Like we're in a car, just him and I, and he was having a really tough time with his role, which is none. But as a kid, it's, hey, like he can see our struggles. He can see that what this guy has done. He feels helpless, and he was really struggling with the helpless feeling. And he was like, he's like so upset, and just what can I do? And I told him, I said, I just need you to focus on the kids stuff because your focus only needs to be like, what am I going to eat at lunch? What am I going to do with my friends? Like, I can't have you worrying about the adult problems. Let me handle that. And I said, I need you to trust me. I'm going to pull us out of this. Do you trust me? And he looked at me, Angela, and he was just like, sure. Like,
not really.
I have no other options, like, and he's just like, okay, like, and at that moment, I had a decision to make. Again, it's like, as much as I want to wallow, like, this is where we're at, and just say, okay, look, I keep trying things and nothing's working, like, nothing, everything I do ends up here in disaster. It's not about me anymore. It's about them. And like, is this really the life I want for them? Is this the life I want them to be comfortable with? More than that, do I want my kids stressing at 12 years old about how our family is going to eat? Like, no parent wants to feel that ever. And so, no, his distrust was like, I have to, because if I don't do this, this kid is always going to take on the world's problems as his to solve, and he's going to feel helpless for a very long time. And so it was like, I have to do this so that he has his power. And I think within that, I found even more so my power.
That's cool. How old is he?
Now he is 14. He turns 15 in 2 weeks.
And how old was he at that point?
He was about 11.
Yeah.
10 or 11.
Yeah. Trying to help. That's awesome. So then you decided to get back into realty, and tell us a little bit about that journey. And then through that, I don't know exactly what year that was compared to when you started a weight loss journey. Also,
yeah, it's all in steps. So I've tried to lose weight so many times because, guys, I was at like 260 and I'm only 5'8". So it's not like that weight really stacks. And so I've tried it. It never worked. But until I really started healing me, like, it wasn't working, because my motivation with the weight loss was usually like, I want to fit in smaller clothes. I want to, look good.
Look better.
Yeah, that's always a motivation. But I'm going to tell you, like, when you're sitting there and you're like, I want some cake, like that motivation flies right out the window. You're just like, I want the cake. But getting back in real estate, I had to. I was at a job working in bail bonds. I was miserable. The politics of things, depending on someone else to give you opportunities and things like that. At that point, I was just miserable. I kind of had to give looking around. I had that conversation with my son going, this isn't the life I want to live, really. And at this point, if I stay here, it's on me. But I'm so afraid to lose, to be honest with you. Like, I was at a point, our trailer was like rotting halfway, full of roaches that you could not get rid of. It was horrible. And at that point, I was telling my husband, we can just move it. Like, we can move it to land. We can fix it. Well, we own it. Like, I was so afraid to lose that I didn't even want to try.
Right.
And he's like, no, like, I do not want to live here, and he's like, and I know you don't either. Like, we avoided that place so much. And so he finally convinces me, not just him, other people. I gave up on me. They didn't give up on me. You need to get back in real estate. What the hell are you doing? You were too good to just do this. I don't understand. But the shame was so high. Like, you got to understand the shame of all of that.
Mm-hmm.
So I make the decision. The only way out is to do what I'm good at. And I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna have to start at a new brokerage where no one knows me and just kind of start over. And that's what I did. I did not have internet. I did not have a computer. I couldn't afford those things. I couldn't afford anything. The only thing I had was a cheap cell phone that allowed me to either be on the phone or the internet, but not at the same time. So I could not afford leads. A lot of realtors build up their business they'll pay for leads and things like that. That's very costly. I couldn't afford that. So that was not even a thing for me. I went to open houses and I was like, if you don't have an agent and you're looking, you're mine. Like, that's
Right.
I'm going to help you and we're going to find you a house, whether it's this house or any house. I'm going to find it for you and we're going to make this happen. And I was picking up quite a few pieces of business that way. So when people would call me about a house they saw, I would let it go to voicemail. I would text them, hey, I'm in an appointment. Can you message me, what you're needing? That way I could pull it up to give them the information. I would get it pulled up, get acquainted with what they're asking for. Then I would call them back and then be like, hey, like, here's the info.
I got it right here. Yeah.
Yeah, but they had no clue, what. And so what happened for me as the underdog was I became very okay running 5 laps to get what most people take for granted and only have to work half a lap to get the same result. And
Right.
so I've become very, very okay with going however long that distance takes to get the result. And that just separated everything.
Right.
Like,
Of course.
and so I feel like I got super blessed. Not in the way that people would think is very blissful, but when it's your only option, you work a little different. You don't need money to have ingenuity. You find ingenuity because you have to.
Right.
It's a little different. And the funny thing is, it took me 3 times longer than it should have to get internet or computer. Because I just got, I'm like, this is fine. My husband's like, you could buy a computer now. Like,
yeah, you can afford it now. Yeah.
And to this day, I'm still that way where I'm like, oh, I have those options available. Like, I didn't know that. Like, I'm a hard worker, but I'm learning now how to work smarter.
Yes. Yeah.
So it's one of those things.
So I'm curious. Yeah, this is good. So I'm curious, like, the thing you said was like the shift from like lack of belief, which is what most people, I would say, struggle with. And that's why most people work a job or don't work for themselves or don't take the job that scares them or whatever. It's a lack of self-belief, which you had a lot of lack of self-belief, obviously. And then to transition into starting realty and then being a tenacious realtor, I guess you could say. You mentioned the belief of others. Do you feel that was like what kept you going on? Like, it's not easy just to be like, okay, you know what, I just decided, and then it is and it's not. But how do you portray it? So like going from like, hey, I don't believe in myself, I'm not going to do this, this isn't working, to like becoming a realtor, and then like becoming that kind of realtor where it wasn't like, you know what, I tried, it didn't work. Like you really tried, you went to work and it worked. What
The
was some of the
no other
shit?
options mentality that Annie talks about. Like for me, it literally, my perception of it, like I have to go back to your perception. It's whatever that is for each person.
Yeah.
My perception was that life or death. If I didn't do it, the worst case scenario is the life that we were living would be now my kids' life as adults because they're very comfortable with that. I mean, they really were. We had lived in that trailer park for 3 years by the time we closed and moved in our house and everything. And so it became just very life or death. Like, and then it became I, on the days that I didn't know that I could do it, because I'd like to be like every day was like, I'm doing it. Like,
Yeah.
and I
Right.
would tell you this, like, I don't think that feeling ever goes away. Because even
Mhm.
to this day, like, it just magnifies the more levels you go up because
Mhm.
now you have more people counting on you,
I agree.
and you still have uncertainty no matter what. Like,
Yeah.
I've built the machine now. At this point, it's a well-oiled machine, but if I'm not working on that machine, it'll start malfunctioning, you
Right.
know? And so, but not only is that machine feeding my family, my husband, my kids now it's my assistant, my teammates, my, like, I
Right.
got a lot more people riding on me than before. And so that never changed. But the perception of like, I have to do this on the days that are like scary, when your brain is like, hey, the money's not there. I don't see how this is going to work. Um, the only thing I could do is two things. I would pray. I know that seems very like,
Mm-mm.
but I just, like, I don't understand why I'm here, but I know you brought me here, and I know you didn't bring me here just to bring me here. And
Mhm.
that's like my only thought. Like, to this day, I bring it back to that. It's like, I don't know why you're bringing me here, but I know that you would not have just brought me here just to be like, okay, well, this is where we're sitting. Like,
Mhm.
so I'm going to keep going, and I'm just going to trust that process, and I'm going to just keep showing up until I absolutely cannot show up anymore. I'm just going to keep showing up, and beyond what I perceive. Like, until they tell me you can't do this anymore because you didn't pay your bill or you didn't do, like, I'm going to keep showing up. And that was number one. Number two would be I would write a list very quickly when I got in that panic. Okay, what can I do? Just blank piece of paper, pen. What do I know that works for me? Okay, open houses work. Okay, I know when I do mail outs, that works. So that I know this, I just brainstorm. These are all the things I can do. I know that these things work. Okay, now out of those things that work, what is it that's the most important? What's going to yield me the best result today?
Mhm.
And I would do that one item. And it does. It makes you feel like, okay, I know I made the result maybe hasn't shown up yet, but I know I'm doing the thing that's going to get me that result.
Mhm.
And so you kind of put your brain back at ease when you're like, nope, I'm doing the work. Like the money, the payday, the whatever is coming. I just know that as long as I keep doing this, it's going to be okay. And so I think that we all, no matter what level, you could be doing it 10 years, 20 years. Sometimes you get in that panic where you're like,
Mhm.
eh, because you live on that line. I feel like where you're like, if this doesn't go the way I'm banking that it goes, like, I don't have a plan B. And I think
Mhm.
that's what entrepreneurship is. It's like there's no plan B.
Right.
We have plan A, and we're going to make plan A work. And it's just very, it's a lot of balance on that. Like, I don't think it gets easier. So I know not a very clear answer for you, but
Kind of just one day at a time,
it's a moment at a time.
moment at a time, not even a day at a
Moment at a time. Like,
time. Yeah. One call at a time. But then using other people to motivate you, so you don't let other people down instead of just yourself.
absolutely. In my worst times, like now, I mean, I'll think about what it would be like to have the conversation with my assistant, like, hey, I didn't do the things I was supposed to do. So now I'm good. Like, if I visualize that, I'm like, I can't do that. Like, I cannot do that. So what do I got to do to make sure that that never happens?
Mm.
And sometimes you got to feel that pain to move away from it very quickly. So it's okay to feel it as long as you're not like that's your concentration is having that conversation over and over. Like
Right.
that shouldn't be it. It's just like, hey, what would that feel? Oh, I don't like that. Like, what do I have to make sure that that doesn't happen? And then that's it. You don't want to concentrate on it. The weight loss, I will say. So once I started getting the business up, we bought a house. We actually ended up building a brand new house, moving into it. Then I was like, okay, my business is set, our housing situation. I had already kind of started weight loss, going through things, and I just got in. My husband and I went to a trip to Vegas, a weekend trip with one day walking on the strip. It was January 1st, New Year's. I could not walk, and this was in 2019. 2020, actually. It was right before COVID. I could not walk. And after one day on this trip, like my knees locked up, my feet locked up, I was heavily overweight. And I remember the shame of standing there at the strip, looking at my husband and just feeling so down because every part of me on the inside wanted to go explore. We've never been to Vegas. There's so many things we wanted to go do. It's supposed to be this fun thing. And I couldn't even walk. Like it was not fun. That trip was not fun. And like he's looking at me upset because he wants to keep going. I want to keep going, but I physically can't. And I just remember thinking, never again. Like I'm only 30 years old and I'm standing on the strip and I can't even walk it. Like the next 10 years at this rate, I will be in a wheelchair, and it was just a very clarifying moment because I think when you're that big, there's so many lies you tell yourself, like to make things okay. Like you're like, I look fine. I like the way I look. I look good. I feel good. But there comes a moment when you're like, nah, like you can't lie. It's very obvious that you're not healthy as much as you keep trying to pretend you are. You're not. And so immediately got back home, found a tribe, got into a boot camp class, got really great trainers there that held accountability. It was like, if you didn't show up 2 days in a row, where are you? And really, if they saw you struggling, they'd jump into it with you. Like, it changed everything. And in the hardest moments, I would literally envision myself back on the strip during the workout. When you're just like, I just want to give up. It's like, no, I don't. I would rather not. I'd rather this pain than that pain.
I love that. And for listeners listening, I hope you guys are catching this. So some people work really well with rewards and some people work really well with their dark side. And I'm a dark side person, so this really resonates with me. But, if there's something that triggered you, visualization is powerful, good and bad. And so, Monica's saying she looked back at the times that were really bad and that triggered her to do the work that she needed to change. Sometimes we're like, oh, well, we're looking for instance, this case, you could be, well, visualize what the life is. Like you visualize this like size, whatever, and this like ripped, toned person, blah, blah, blah. That's a good visualization that most people talk about all the time. But really, a lot of times what motivates you to do the work is thinking about that dark side. I know I did that too, where I would look back and I'd picture my parents. I built a business, make sure they're looked after. And I would picture them on the street corner with the rain pouring and them looking at me. And I get emotional thinking about it and just being like, why didn't you work any harder? And that like drove me so hard in the first like bit. So similar thing, like Monica here is using her pain motivate her to move forward. So, there's something in your life, and I was talking to someone yesterday about this, and I was like, how will it feel when you tell your son that you didn't work hard enough and he can't get what he wants because you didn't work hard enough? So like, whatever it is, if you're listening to this, you're like, man, I just need motivation. Who is it or what is it in your life that you can use like Monica's and visualize that pain so that you can do the work that you want to do, but you're just not able to do because you got to rewire your brain. So that's one way to rewire your brain so you can actually do the work. I just want to point that out. Like I said, you said it twice, and I want people to really hear that. Like, it's not just about visualizing this wonderful, fantastic, life. Yeah, that's great too, and it feels really good. But sometimes, depending on how you're wired, and for me, I do it a lot. I have to go to the dark side, and I have to go down to like, man, if I don't do this, and I get probably worse than I ever actually would be if I didn't do it. But like, I feel that emotion, and it, triggers the effort, which is what, you've done in 2 different areas of your life.
I do it in every way. So I'm definitely like, my brain goes, like, if you say we need to talk, it goes to the dark side immediately. Like, and it's always, I did something. What did I do? I never even consider like someone else. Like, it's like, oh, I messed, like immediate, that shame, or like I messed up. And then I start thinking of all the things I probably did wrong.
Right.
and then it's never that, but I will say this, through everything, one thing that I have learned for me specifically is, and most people I think are wired this way, is we are willing to let ourselves down before we're willing to let someone else down.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so that visualization of letting someone else down is enough for us to be like, no,
right,
don't do that. But if you visualize letting yourself down, you're like, I can live with that.
Yeah. I can live in that trailer. I can live with that broke down car. I could, 100%. Like,
because you're like, I could live in a box and be fine. The thing with me and money is like, I've lost things so much in my life that like, I'm not tied to it like people are. I'm not afraid of losing. It does not scare me.
mm-hmm.
But that can be a bad thing at the same time. Like, it's a great thing because that's not the thing that when I'm with a client or a consumer or somebody, I'm not like, I don't have sales breath. I'm not like, I got to sell you this to make this. Like, right. I'm not that person. But it's a horrible thing because at the same time, because sometimes you don't have as much respect for it as it deserves. Like, money's not everything, but it's not nothing too. And so sometimes we treat it like it's nothing.
Because we're trained.
Yes. And so I've had to be more intentional, and then that's where I have to go with the lighter side about money. And because the dark side doesn't scare me.
Right.
And the light side, and it does excite me to think of like, hey, I truly believe that more people like me and you need to be rich, truly, because the world needs more of people like us who are going to take that wealth and do amazing things for other people with it. It needs more people like us to become rich. Right. Like, I do believe that.
100%. Yeah. And I mean, if you're not closing, if you really believe in what your product is, which obviously, selling houses, I guess you believe you do a good job for the client. I know you believe that. So if you believe in your product, whatever your product is, whoever's listening, and you're not selling it, because you're like, well, it doesn't really, like, I don't want to make money. If you're not selling it, you're not helping people, because if you really believe in your product, you need to sell it. Explaining a product does not help a person until they buy whatever product is that you really believe in it. And if you don't really believe in it, you're probably in the wrong industry. Like, you probably need to be selling something else. Like,
you're in the wrong. Like, my thing is like, so I've been told I'm a bottom feeder agent, which is a horrible
name.
Brokerage, because my clientele is like me. Like, they're hardworking people trying to change their generational patterns. They're working, like, they're doing everything possible. And for a lot of my clientele, this is the first house their family is ever in. And I'm like, I'll be a bottom feeder agent all day long. Listen, I'll be the one to get them there because other people aren't willing to do that kind of work that it requires. But I think it's worth it because these people, and I can see that this is changing not just their lives, but their kids and their grandchildren from this point forward. They're changing their family history. And I don't think there's anything better than that. Like, I am like the biggest believer in the underdog life story. Like, that's me through and through. And that's just, and I think it's my calling to help the other underdogs, because I think we're all underdogs, and the people living not to their full potential just don't know it yet. Like they just don't know what they're actually capable of yet.
Yeah, that's so good. There's a couple of podcasts I got to get you on. That I have a couple of my friends' podcasts that I think you'd be really good on. One is about Zach Babcock. His is about the underdog empowerment. It's just the name of his like
I
podcast.
love it.
Yeah, like
No, you should connect me, because
I will. I'll
would
definitely
love that.
connect you. Yeah, and Elena Nadig, she lost like 100 pounds in like 2 or 3 years too.
I
And so
did, I
yeah,
was on hers. No,
were
I
you
have
okay?
done, yes, I've
Cool.
done hers, and
Good.
yes, it was just the same. I'm like, I love connecting with, like, that's my thing, is like you find your passions. Mine is connecting. Like that's, I think what you guys do, Angela, you, Lena, all of you, I'm like, it's so cool because you get to meet all these really awesome people, and just I would imagine your brains are exploding every day with new
Oh,
information.
so good. Yeah, these podcasts, like for anyone listening, yeah, we're doing it for you, but really it's for me. Because I get to talk to amazing people like Monica, and I get to learn. And, I do either recording in the morning first thing because, before business time. And I love it also because it starts my day off really well. So I'm fired up for the rest of my day because I'm talking to people like you, Monica. So in wrapping up, because I think we could talk forever, but I know we can. We'll touch base when you're in the top 1% now of realtors. And get you out there. But yeah, in wrapping up, I always have 3 final questions, and then anything that we didn't touch on that we should, leave our listeners with. So first final question is, if someone's looking for their purpose, which everyone's always looking for their purpose, what's one sentence that you could say that might help them find it?
Your purpose, man, that's a tough one. It really is. It's just, I know it's so cliche, like, what would you do if you didn't get paid for it? But the thing is, like, for me, it's like conversations. Like, I would talk all day. Like, I could talk for 48 hours straight if you let me. You'd be like, does this girl ever shut up? I think that the thing that you should look forward to is, what is the common denominator that you hear all the time? Do people tell you, I just, man, even if it's negative, like, do you ever shut up? Like, if you're hearing that a lot, maybe your gift is that talking, because I think a lot of times your purpose and your gift are, they're double-edged swords. Like, it's your greatest talent, it's your greatest thing, but it can also be your biggest detriment too. Like, it's learning how to balance it. So whatever you're hearing people tell you a lot of,
Good or bad? Yeah.
they're like, seriously, but you can turn that bad into good. It just follow that for a minute.
That's good. I like that. That's really true. Number 2, and I'm sure you have more than one, but what comes to mind? What's a favorite quote and why?
Let's see. My favorite quote, it's Maya Angelou, and
Mm.
it's I can't think of it exactly. It's the, like, we weren't born to survive. I'm here to thrive. Like,
Mm.
can't off the top of my
Something
head.
like that.
Yeah. It's Maya Angelou, and she's like, we weren't just born to survive. We were born to thrive.
That's so good. And number 3, what's one word or sentence you want on your gravestone?
I would say passionate, like something with passion in it, like very compassionate, passionate, some very, that would be it. Just that I cared, I think, more about other people, like just a very caring soul.
Love that. That's very cool. All right. So let's say we run into someone in a coffee shop, they've listened to the podcast. They're like, Monica, that was absolutely incredible. What's something that maybe we missed that you just think would be really impactful for people to touch on?
Yeah, I just want everyone to know you're already worthy. It's not a question of worth. Like, whatever it is that you're after, like, you're already, the worth is there because you're a human, and you have a brain and a soul. Like, the worth is there. It doesn't discriminate on that. It's just the work. It's a very simple, you haven't done enough action steps and enough time to equal the result. Like, there is no quick thing. So like, whatever it is that you want, a lot of times we focus on, we're not worthy of that, or we think we're not the one, but we, at the same time, don't want to give it the time that it requires and the action steps consistently enough. That's it. So I would say that would be it, is like whatever you want, you just have to do enough of the correct action steps consistently for enough time. That is it. You just have to hold out long enough.
Hold out long enough. Do the work. One moment at a time. I
Yeah, one
love
moment.
it. As always, guys, make sure to rate, review, subscribe, follow Monica. We'll have all the information, in the show notes. Let's go out there. Let's change one starfish or one person at a time. If we can change one life at a time together, we can change the world. Thanks so much, Monica.
Thank you, Angela.